Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at a really awesome 17.3-inch gaming laptop from MSI. This is known as the MSI Sword 17 A11 UD 428. So with this one here, we have an 8-core, 16-thread i7 CPU paired up with an RTX 3050 Ti and a 17.3-inch IPS 144Hz display. And as you can see, this thing is an absolute monster. I mean, it is a huge laptop with that giant screen. Now, this did come pre-installed with Windows 10, but it can always be upgraded to Windows 11, and you might actually end up buying one of these, and it does have Windows 11 pre-installed on it because all of the newer ones will. And I've had the last couple days to mess around with this thing. Usually, I'm not a big fan of these larger screen laptops. Personally, I'm more into portability, but after using this with this gigantic 17.3-inch 144Hz display, it's definitely starting to grow on me. Now we do have this single zone, single color backlit keyboard. It does feel pretty good, but when it comes to the trackpad, I think it's a bit small for the size of this laptop because after all, I mean, this has a much larger footprint than a 15.6-inch version would have, and I think they should have added a little more trackpad here. When it comes to I/O, over here on the left-hand side, we have a single USB 3.2 port and a single USB 2.0 port. I'm not exactly sure why they're still adding 2.0 here. But over here on the right-hand side, we have Gigabit Ethernet, a full-size HDMI port, USB Type-C, and this is USB 3.2, so it will do video out, another full-size USB 3.2 port, and our 3.5mm audio jack. Now before we take a look at the specs and test this thing out, I do want to mention that this video is sponsored by Micro Center. Now if you're not familiar with Micro Center and you are a tech enthusiast, then you really should be. They have real brick and mortar stores that you can walk into and put your hands on the product before you buy it. And if you head over to their website right now, they have a new section called the Platinum Collection. This is where they have all of their high quality name brand gaming laptops and desktops. And I've actually had a chance to test out a few of these items from the Platinum Collection, but as soon as I saw this MSI Sword with that 144Hz 17-inch display, I knew I had to get my hands on it, and they were kind enough to send this over for review. So if you're interested in checking out the all new Micro Center Platinum Collection, I will leave a few links in the description. So when it comes to the specs of this rig, for the CPU we have that Tiger Lake i7-11800H. 8 cores, 16 threads, base clock of 2.3 GHz with a turbo up to 4.6. The GPU is an Nvidia RTX 3050 Ti, and with that we get 4 GB of GDDR6 VRAM, 16 GB of DDR4 running at 3200 MHz, a 512 GB NVMe SSD, 17.3-inch 1080p IPS 144Hz display, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.0. As you saw, we do have an Ethernet port and USB Type-C on this unit. And I also wanted to take a quick look at upgradeability, so I pulled the bottom off here. And it's not too bad at all. We can always replace that M.2 SSD, our Wi-Fi/Bluetooth card. There is a spot here ready to go for a 2.5-inch drive. And we also have dual channel RAM. So if you did want to upgrade to 32 or 64, you can get it right out of the way here. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how this thing performs, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So far, everything's been working really well. As you can see, we have the 11800H, 16 gigs of RAM, and we have that Nvidia RTX 3050 Ti. We've got GDDR6 with this, and when it comes to bloat in these newer gaming laptops, there is going to be a bit of it. First up, you're going to have some type of security. This one came with Norton. Personally, this is something I would just uninstall. And we also have the MSI Center. Now inside of here, I just left this installed. We do have a few options. I'm set to extreme performance, and inside of the BIOS, there's only really one performance setting that we can mess with, and that's go to balanced or performance. I'm set to performance in the BIOS to try to get the most out of this laptop. And while this is a 45 watt part, you might see it go up a bit higher because we are in performance mode, or ultra performance mode as they call it here with the MSI Center. As for everyday usability, if you wanted to use this as your main desktop for web browsing, email checking, video editing, photo editing, I mean, we got more than enough power out of this 8-core, 16-thread CPU and that RTX 3050 Ti. And when you want to save power, we also have the Intel Iris Xe graphics built in. Now, given they're definitely not going to be as powerful as this dedicated Nvidia GPU, but for photo editing and things like that, it's going to work out just fine, and it'll dramatically increase your battery life. Now, the first thing I wanted to do with this was run some benchmarks. I got a few to go over here. Then we're going to jump right into some gaming because that's really what this MSI Sword is all about. And first up for the benchmarks, we have Geekbench 5, single core looking really strong with a 1551, and I gotta say I'm actually impressed by the multi-core on this one too, at 8,491. Next on the list, we have 3D Mark Night Raid, 38,486, Firestrike, 12,311, and finally, Time Spy with a 5,545. Personally, I think these scores are looking great given that we only have that RTX 3050. It's not a 3060 or a 3070, but for what we have here, I think we're going to be able to pull off some really good gaming performance. And that's what's up next. First up, I always like to test at least one fighting game, and here we have Injustice 2, 1080p, very high settings. We're at 60 here. This is looking really good. I'm maxed out. And really, going into this, I was pretty sure we'd be okay with these fighting games. Witcher 3 did amazingly at 1080p, high settings. I could probably jack this up to Ultra and still get over 60 with it, but I just left it at high. We got an average of 96 FPS. Next on the list, we have Project Cars 2, 1080p, very high settings, looking really good here, and I got an average of 116 FPS by the end of my run here. When it comes to Call of Duty Warzone, I actually didn't think that the 3050 Ti would perform this well. We're at high, normal settings, and we got an average of 116 FPS out of this. If you went down to normal, maybe a normal low mix, there is a chance you could get 144 out of this to utilize the built-in screen here. GTA 5, 1080p, very high settings. We got an average of 112 FPS, and in most cases you're going to be well over that 112 mark, but when there's lots of effects and explosions going on screen, it will drop down a bit, but overall it does run it quite well. Here's Fortnite, 1080p, high settings. We average 156 FPS with this one, so this is one of those games that would really take advantage of that 144Hz screen. Cyberpunk 2077, recently we did get some updates to this game, and it does perform a lot better on these lower end GPUs. We're at 1080p medium settings with DLSS set to performance, and still, even then, we only got an average of 71 FPS. Personally, I still think it looks great at 1080p medium settings, and I'd play it like this all day. Dirt 5 with a high medium mix. Unfortunately, again, I did have to turn some of these down. This is just a harder game to run, but most of the stuff is set to high. I turned some of the shadows down to medium. We got an average of 65 FPS out of this one. And the final game we have here is Doom Eternal, 1080p high settings. Now I did try to go up to the Nightmare settings, but unfortunately we only have 4 gigs of VRAM, so it just wouldn't do it. But high, 1080p, we got an average of 74 FPS. So through all of my testing, I was monitoring these CPU temps, and for a laptop like this, it's really not that bad, but I really wish that inside of the BIOS there was some kind of fan curve that we could adjust, because this could use a little more fan in some instances. At idle, we averaged 39. Through all of my gaming tests, we had an average of 81, and in a 10-minute Cinebench R23 test, we did hit thermal throttle about 6 minutes and 45 seconds into the test at 96 degrees Celsius. So in the end, I had a really good experience with the MSI Sword 17. The 17.3-inch IPS 144Hz display does look absolutely beautiful. The keyboard feels great, but like I mentioned, I wish we had a much larger trackpad because we do have a lot of room inside of here given the screen size. I mean, the footprint on this laptop, it's much bigger than a 15.6-inch, and they could have added a little more trackpad to this. But in the end, it's really up to you. If you've been looking for a decent 17.3-inch gaming laptop that's not going to quite break the bank like something with a 3070 or a 3080, then this one might be for you. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I really appreciate you watching, and I do want to give Micro Center a big shout out for letting me review this one. If you're interested in getting a free 240GB SSD, Micro Center has a new customer exclusive deal going on right now. Link for this is in the description. You're going to put in your name and email, and they'll send you a coupon to go in store to get a free 240GB SSD. If you have any questions about the MSI Sword 17 or you want to see anything else running on this laptop, just let me know in the comments below. But like always, thanks for watching.